I am Councillor Nick Turner and Chairman of the Tendring District Council's Planning Policy and Local Plan Committee. It falls to me as the last councillor not standing for election on May the 6th to have the pleasure to host our meet. The reason being that 6 weeks before an election, those standing enter a period known as purdah, meaning that any public duties are severely curtailed. Earlier this month, both councils adopted part 1 of their local plans. Tendring District Council, Colchester Borough and Essex County are working together to discuss how we are going to plan for and create this garden community, and have formed steering groups involving elected members and senior officers. Due to the elections, we are now in a position best described as rain stop play. The member steering group has been acutely aware of the difficult position of your various town and parish councils and doesn't want the election to hold up the opportunity to update you on progress or the opportunity to invite your ideas, questions and concerns. I too am a town councillor for the Frinton and Walton Town Council and have considerable experience of major developments taking place in my area and know how important it is to keep the lines of communication open, both when the developments are being planned and whilst they are being delivered. Communication is at the top of our topics for discussion, and we have made progress in posting on various social media sites. We have set up a Tendring Colchester Borders Garden Community website. More of that later. This very exciting project is very long term. 2 generations, 30, 40 and 50 years before it will be finished. It will not happen overnight. The next couple of years are going to be critical in setting the development along the right path, and the input of local people working around the various restrictions we currently face is going to be key to the project's success. This is an exploratory meeting to give you and us a way for us all to engage with the project. May I ask you to stay on mute until called to speak. Use the raised hand button when you wish to speak. This meeting is being recorded and will be published on the Tendring Colchester Borders Garden Community's YouTube channel after May the 6th. I am delighted that we are joined tonight by town councillors and officers from the Colchester side of the border, as well as those from Tendring. This is very much going to be a joint effort. To use the TDC motto, pro bono omnium, for the good of all. Now I'll ask Mr. Guyver to begin our presentation and introduce the various officers as and when. Mr. Guyver.
Thank you very much, Councillor Turner. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm getting some nods, so that's good. I'm Gary Guyver, I'm Assistant Director at Tendring District Council, one of the lead officers on the Garden Community Project, but I'm really happy to be joined this evening to help answer any queries, questions you may have by colleagues from Colchester, Essex and Jacobs. I've got a quite short presentation, he says, famous last words. And Sharon, if you could get the slides up onto the screen for me, and I'll run through the presentation just to give an overview of where we are with the project. And I completely appreciate that some of you will have a lot of knowledge about the garden community and have been involved in various meetings or even the public, the local plan examination, and others are perhaps coming at it from a newer perspective. So we'll try and keep it light. And if you have any questions, perhaps at the end, we'll go through those. Next slide then, please, Sharon. And can everybody see the slide on the screen? That's great, thank you. So to start with, just as at a glance, housing need, big driver of the way that we plan for new development. So Colchester has a need for 920 homes a year, Tendring a need for 550 homes a year. Councils have a legal duty to plan for the projected requirements for housing, and these are not insignificant numbers that we're looking at here, getting on for sort of 1,500 homes between the two councils. Now, those figures have been agreed, scrutinised as part of the local plan process by the inspector. The garden community is a way of meeting some of that growth in a different way has been done traditionally. It's the idea here is that you deliver between 7,000 to 9,000 homes, 24 hectares of employment land, provision for gypsies and travellers, but with the period between now and 2033, which is the period of the local plan that was examined, around 2,000, 2,500 of those homes are expected in that period. But this is much longer term, because although the 920 and the 550 homes a year are the requirements up to 2033, we know that the population is most likely going to grow continuously beyond 2033, and the garden community provides a longer term plan for delivering some of that growth in a new way. And for the plan period up to 2033, the idea is, because the two councils are working together on this project, wherever the homes are built, for every 2 homes built, 1 would count towards meeting Colchester's requirements and 1 will count towards meeting Tendering's requirement. And that will be reviewed as we continue, but that's set out in the local plan. And after a long period of examination, the inspector agreed that that approach was sound, subject to the modifications which were published, consulted on, and now both Colchester and Tendring councils have published section 1 of the local plan and adopted it. And now we move to a position to working out more of the detail of the garden community going forward, which will be the subject of essentially its own local plan, a development plan document, and that will contain the details that people are dying to see around where the development will go, and also the policies that will be used to determine applications in the area, and that will be used to guide the future of the development in this location. Thank you. And we understand that, of course, not everybody was a fan of the garden community approach, but it's been through the local plan examination now, so we're really hoping that we can work positively with everyone involved to try and get the best outcome from this development going forward. And to do that, there's a number of areas of work that we're looking at now that the plan is adopted, and we've got a green light to proceed. There's a number of work streams here. We have a members group which at the highest level of the process is overseeing how the three authorities, including Essex, work together on bringing the garden community forward. More officer level steering group. A programme team consisting of a smaller group of officers with specialisms on the financial side, communications, project management, and then more specific planning working group as well, looking more particularly at the programme for producing the development plan document, undertaking the master planning work, which over the course of the next couple of years is going to be a big focus of our work on this garden community. So now we've got the green light from the inspector and the plan is adopted, we move swiftly on to progressing these various work streams. Next slide, please, Sharon. Thank you. So here's a very high level indication of the timeframes that we're working to on this project now. And throughout 2021, it's going to be a key year for preparation of the development plan document, because a lot of the legwork will be done this year. And I'm talking about a lot of the public engagement, trying to understand what the issues in the area are, trying to understand where people's red lines are within the different communities, and doing a lot of the technical work that will feed in to the master planning process and the preparation of the development plan document itself. So it's important that we progress that work now, And over the course of the next year, we undertake all forms of engagement, and through a combination of the technical evidence that's produced either by specialist consultants or by officers working in the council, and our speaking to people like yourself and others throughout the community and other stakeholders, all of this information will feed into the process of producing a development plan document. And a key early aspect of this is the A120 A133 link road planning application, which has today been submitted to Essex County Council for determination. And there'll be a little bit in the presentation with a bit more detail on that. So 2021, very much a key year. A lot of work going on. It's unfortunate that we're having to work under some of these restrictions, but I think it hasn't prevented us from having meetings like this, and there'll be a lot more opportunities later on in the year, hopefully, to meet with people face to face and out in the community. 2022 to 23, we get into the statutory end of the plan making process, where the development plan document would be published in a formal sense for 2 rounds of consultation, one on a preferred option, which would be around spring of next year, then on essentially the council's collective final version that would then go over to the Secretary of State, because like the local plan, this development plan document needs to be independently scrutinised by a planning inspector before it can proceed to adoption. So 2022 to 23 is very much about the statutory process. But if we've done the engagement bit right throughout 2021, hopefully what is contained within that document won't come as a big surprise to everyone, because everybody would have had an opportunity to have a bit of input into that work. And whether people like it or don't like it at the end of that process, at least it shouldn't come as a big shock, and people will have a lot of information about how we got to that stage. Bearing in mind, we're not going to be able to please everyone, whatever we do, but we'll certainly try our best to take on board all the comments that we receive. 2024, we're out on site, essentially. The link road needs to be completed by then, and then we'll see the construction of the first homes. But as Councillor Turner quite rightly said at the head of this presentation, I think one of the things that concerns a lot of people is they can envisage this development shooting up overnight. But actually a development of this scale, we are talking sort of 20, 30, 40 year timeframes in reality. And I think a lot of people will be very interested to understand how the development is going to be phased over that period of time. So a really critical year over the next few years to make sure we set this project off on the right road. Sharon, could I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So some of the early work, as I've described, involves really working out what information we need to be able to progress to this more detailed stage of the process, what evidence studies need to be undertaken, how the engagement fits into that. And we're looking at different themes that have to be addressed as well. This is a huge project, and it needs to be sort of divided up into manageable chunks over the next few years as we proceed to a final document. So there's a lot of work going on at the moment, and understanding what technical documentation is required, what studies need to be undertaken. Bearing in mind where we are with the link road and the rapid transit system, that's what RTS stands for, we have to consider very carefully how the garden community relates to the link road and the RTS, bearing in mind that these processes are going to be going along at the same time. So the actual construction of the link road, for example, will be going on at a time when we're sort of finishing off the development plan documents. So very much the two processes have to be intertwined. So there's a lot of technical work going on making sure that the link road and the rapid transit system and the garden community work together as a package, as they should do. The engagement side of things is a key bit of the work for this year, and we're setting up liaison groups to ensure that you have an opportunity to have an input into this project. Oh, the slides have gone. Can people still hear me though?
I can hear you, Gary.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Sharon, it disappeared. It's back on the screen now. So we're going to have themed workshops looking at various themes that feed into this garden community project over the next year, meetings with the community liaison groups. We've got the new engagement website, which I hope people have had an opportunity to look at, because it's going to be a treasure trove of information, essentially. And a lot of the questions that we're going to get over the next few months, we answer them, we put the answers onto there, and it gives people opportunity to put forward their ideas so that we can take them on board going forward. And we'll have more meetings like this with town and parish councils throughout the project. Thank you, Sharon. Next slide. Okay, the next little section of the presentation here. Let's have a look. I'll probably pick up questions at the end, if that's okay. But the next few slides here relate to the Link Road application. I've got a little box come up here, Sharon. Oh, it's gone now. Thank you. Could you go back to the first slide for me, please? Lovely, thank you. So 2019, there was a successful award of nearly £100 million through the Housing Infrastructure Fund. That's HIF. Oh, I've slipped back a slide. Well, the HIF funding is designed to fund the delivery of the A120, A133 Link Road and first elements of the rapid transit system, which are key to unlocking this development. So the government supports big developments like this through this kind of funding, where they can deliver large amounts of housing, bearing in mind that it's a top government priority to deliver housing. And the funding requires the completion of the Link Road by 2024. Thank you. Hence the urgency in getting on with the DPD, getting that in place, ready for the development to take place. Sharon, if I can have the next slide, please. I think there's sometimes a bit of a lag between the slides coming up and me speaking, so I apologise for that. So there was consultation undertaken in 2019 on a range of options for how the Link Road would connect the 120 to the 133, and the route that was selected, the option 1C variant, now forms part of the planning application that was submitted today. Now the planning process is a minimum 6 weeks process, which includes public consultation. So the information that will be published on the website, providing all the documentation around the Link Road, will be available for public scrutiny and for people to put comments into Essex County Council, highlighting any issues, concerns or ideas they might have about the application. There have been pre-application meetings with the County Council Planning Department from Jacobs, and the consultation was held with relevant stakeholders until January 2021, including some of the statutory agencies and councils. And the application that's been submitted reflects the discussions that have taken place, and the route that has been selected really is the best fit for this location, taking on board all the various site constraints, environmental issues and concerns raised by the public. Sharon, if you could give me the next slide, please. Thank you. So it's designed to be a 50-mile-per-hour carriageway road, 2.4 kilometres long on the eastern side of the broad location earmarked for the garden community. In terms of junctions, the junction onto the A133 is a at-grade roundabout, and you can see the graphic diagram there on the slide. The junction onto the A120 would be a grade separated dumbbell junction, east of Bromley Road, up on to the east of the waste transfer station, and where the petrol station is on the 120. And there are going to be intermediate roundabouts along that route, which essentially provide access to the garden community. But in coming up with the route, a lot of thought has gone into how you integrate public rights of way, PROWS, into the garden community, and thinking about how all of the side roads fit into this as well, access to farms, etc. Landscaping is a key element of the planning application, designed in a way that mitigates the environmental impact of this development, both in terms of the landscape impact, sound, those kind of factors, but also takes into account the potential location of the garden community, so that there is a proper integration between the two. And that's one of the key things that we'll need to do through the master planning work going forward, is to ensure that it works seamlessly with the selected route of the garden community. If I could have the next slide, please, Sharon. So a virtual exhibition has been set up, and if you hadn't had a chance to look on this website, I do suggest you do, because it is incredibly useful. There's a whole load of really well presented information on there to explain the Link Road proposal and the rapid transit system, and it's being set up in a way so it looks like a virtual exhibition room. If you go to an exhibition in the village hall, you can click on the various sections of it, and all of the various documents are on there as well. And it provides more information about the planning documents, which are now published. And we've got Laura and Ian are on the call to answer any particular questions about that. If I just finish off on the presentation, then we'll take questions after, if that's okay. Okay. And there will be further information about a live broadcast on here. And if there's any questions on this scheme in particular, there's an email address there, because it's a very technical project. And I'm sure that people will have lots of questions about it, and they can be emailed to that address. Sharon, if you could move on to the next slide. So, I mean, the next steps for this project, you've got the planning process, but while all of that's happening, there's the tender preparation for selecting the supplier, the contractor who's going to do the development. There'll continue to be discussions and negotiations with the landowners affected, the appointment of the contractors, and here's the key dates that I'm sure you'll be interested in. The advance works to begin winter 21-22. If the application goes well, and then the main works to begin spring 2022. So not far away, really. I mean, within a year, potentially we're looking at construction on site, and then completion by 2024, in line with the requirements of the funding. Sharon, if I could have the next slide, please. So here's some of the drawings that you will find in the published information, which is part of the planning application now. And I'm not going to go through it in great detail from the slide, but this is essentially the northern junction onto the A120, so the grade separated junction just to the east of the waste transfer station and the petrol station, close to Strawberry Grove. And you can see also that you've got the first intermediate roundabout up there as well, nearest to the north of the site. Next one, Sharon. And here's showing the southern section from that first intermediate roundabout all the way down to the A133, where you've got the at-grade roundabout. And you can see that there is the 1C variant. This route here was designed in that way to avoid some of the heritage assets in the area, including the most sensitive parts of Turnip Lodge Lane, but also finding the most appropriate location for the junction on the A133 in terms of spacing. But my colleagues will know more about the technical side of things here. But all of this information forms part of the application. Next slide, please. You'll be pleased that I'm not going to speak too much longer, so I provide the opportunity to hand over soon. But I mean, listening to local communities is going to be key to the success of this project. And what I just wanted to do is just let you know that I have been speaking to people in the area, and I'm happy to have further meetings with town and parish councillors as well. But it's useful to have these kind of discussions to understand what people's hopes and fears are about this project, because it helps us as we progress to the more detailed stage of master planning work and working on the DPD to understand where the red lines are in terms of people's expectations, where the concerns are, so that as we're working up options as part of the master planning work, you know, we're fully mindful of things that have been said to us. And the fact that we're doing this kind of engagement early on in the process, not just waiting till the statutory bit of the process, is good, because it plants the seeds in our mind of the issues that have been raised in the local community. Some of it, I mean, we're very mindful, for example, of the issues around Salary Brook. And the desire to maintain separation from the edge of Colchester to the development around the very sensitive areas of Salary Brook. Further south, we're very conscious that there's a concern that people don't want to see too much development venturing south of the 133 towards Wivenhoe. That's one of the concerns we're aware of. Elmstead Market, of course, don't want the garden community to encroach onto the village. So I've had discussions with councillors from Elmstead Market about how you incorporate some kind of green buffer into the scheme. And I've been speaking to people in the Crockleford Heath area who similarly want a green buffer around their area, or failing that, the development to be of a much lower density in that location. Density is one of the issues that has come up talking to people. Some people are concerned that they don't want the density to be too high because they fear that that wouldn't represent a garden community development. On the same token, others are concerned if the density is too low, because the development would sprawl out onto more open countryside and raise concerns about major loss of greenfield agricultural land. People that I've spoken to are keen to ensure that the community maintains control of this development and it doesn't become just purely developer-led, with the developer calling all of the shots. And I've also had discussions with people that are very supportive of the link road. Think it's absolutely necessary to manage the traffic in the area. Other people suggesting that it's not necessary at all, because in the future people won't be driving cars to work, will be working from home, like a lot of people have done over the last year. But the thing you've got to bear in mind with projects like this, they're very long term. Things are going to change socially and economically in the 20, 30, 40 years that this development takes place. So we've got to be mindful of that as well. But we are all ears if there are other concerns, other ideas. please put them forward. This year is the perfect opportunity to get those comments over. And that's me finished. So I'm going to hand back to Councillor Turner now, who I'm sure will open up for any discussion or questions.
Thank you very much, Gary. Excellent as always. Thank you, Sharon, for the slides. Well, the first question I have is from Sally F. So, Miss Councillor Sally Fairley. Over to you, Councillor.
Well, I was trying to get Gary's attention because I haven't seen any of the slides, the whole presentation. So that's rather late now for my question.
What I'll do is I'll have them sent to you.
Okay.
Councillor Fairley. If we haven't got we'll either send them direct to the council for you, or if you give us your email address, you can do it in the chat. An officer will pick it up and send them on to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, apologies. I find it quite difficult when I see the little comments come up to follow those while I'm giving the presentation. But as Councillor Turner says, we can get the slides over to you for sure.
Yeah. Did you have a question from what you heard verbally?
No, I didn't have anything specific to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fairley. I noticed Councillor Luxford Vaughan. I noticed you in the chat column there. Would you like to ask those questions, please?
Thank you, Councillor. When the Link Road application went in as a pre-app, we wrote quite a comprehensive list of questions and queries about certain aspects of it, and we did that obviously as in a statutory, consultee capacity. We've had nothing from them. We asked for a meeting because some of it is very difficult to explain in answer questions going backwards and forwards. It's much easier to say, oh well, it's there because it's easier to have a meeting. We've asked for that meeting. We haven't even heard that we can't have the meeting. So I'm it's a bit disappointing. So my question is, when does it actually go public that we can go and make representations at some kind of committee meeting? And when will the public be able to see it? I mean, Gary's showing me slides tonight of the layout, which I'm familiar with from the pre-app, but when I looked at that online consultation, I couldn't find it. Now that might be because it's quite hard to navigate, but that would be another bit of feedback. If you want me to go through all of my questions, all of my observations, just to correct Gary, it's not Wivenhoe doesn't want to see some types of development south of the A133. We don't want any, thank you. And I think it's quite important, that all of the communities are heard on this. Yes, Salary Brook is incredibly important environmentally, but basically so is the whole site. So I think all communities, especially Elmstead, who've getting all sorts of development popping up all over the place.
Stick to your parish, please. I'm certain Elmstead can speak for itself.
Well, I'm sure they can, but I don't want them to think that we're just looking after ourselves.
Thank you, Councillor Luxford Vaughan, and I appreciate that. And I can see that if Wivenhoe don't want to see any development south of the 133, I mean, these factors, these concerns, they've got to be taken into account, and ultimately you're going to have a lot of communities with different views on how the development should proceed. But the good thing is, if we raise them early and we understand the various positions of different communities, at least we can go ahead with the master planning work mindful of those concerns. Laura, I don't know if you wanted to come back on Councillor Luxford Vaughan's questions about the application and the Link Road, please.
Yeah, Councillor Luxford Vaughan, I do apologise that the council hasn't received a response from your very thorough submission for the pre-application. We do thank you for that. I appreciate that pre-application is brilliant in some ways in introducing the schemes and getting those key initial pointers from stakeholders, but a lot of the detail is not forthcoming as part of that stage of the process. So We do feel that a lot of the points you raised will be addressed by the full planning application, and I propose that we'll send a response to your written submission to direct you to where those documents will be able to finish you with the answers. And then I suggest after that, if there's still matters which you don't feel are addressed, then we can convene a meeting for those outstanding points. Today, the documentation was submitted to Essex County Council as the County Planning Authority, and we do believe that through the verification process tomorrow and Thursday, it will be made available to the public at the end of this week. And I'd suggest that the website that Gary noted on the slides earlier, that we'll make sure are circulated to you all, that will provide a link through to those public documents when they are live.
Did you wish to come back, Councillor Luxon-Vaughan?
Not at this stage, but thank you for those answers.
Councillor Belgrove.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Turner. Yeah, just a couple of points from the Ulster perspective, and it's about the rapid transport systems. I mean, if it's just going to be buses, you know, in a bus lane and things like that, maybe we should broaden that out. What will the rapid transport system consist of? Because transport policies are key to us out in Ulstead, having to, you know, negotiate as we do Bingo Hill, etc. So we really want, as far as Ulster is concerned, we'd like to focus on what will the rapid transport system consist of, please.
Thank you, Councillor Belgrove. I don't know whether that's one that perhaps Laura or Ian possibly might be able to help with.
Yeah, so I'll look to answer that. So the rapid transport system, I mean, the HIFBID is providing, as Gary sort of included in his consultation, in his presentation, the initial aspects of off-site infrastructure, and very much we're looking at targeting areas where we can place infrastructure that helps support reliable service. It will be wheel-based, so we are looking, and we've used previously in the past the Belfast glider as our initial starting point. But obviously, with this being set in the future from beyond 2024, the types of vehicles, we're obviously looking at vehicles that embody sustainable and environmentally favourable vehicles in that time frame. The government is looking at from 2025 at motorised vehicles being electric based, but obviously there's potentially hydrogen as well. We're looking on the basis of the rapid transport system, a service that would be every 6 to 7 minutes, and the intention is to provide a regular, frequent, reliable, high quality service, looking at Wi-Fi, but not only the actual vehicles themselves being of a different class and type than you would expect from a normal bus service. We're also looking at the technology for actually interfacing with it as well. So from a ticketing perspective, the actual halt facilities, the actual interconnectivity beyond the halts themselves. So obviously we're trialling e-scooters at the moment, but also there's potential for e-bikes. So it's also about how we can expand the influence of the RTS corridor beyond the actual corridor itself. Which, you know, initially will run through from the garden community, the university, through into the town centre, and then also picking up the stations and the hospital as well. And then we also ways that maybe we can run express services that maybe sort of run through university as well. So it's a whole varied package. And Essex County Council is looking currently at the moment at not only Colchester, but also how it goes forward with an operational standard for RTS throughout the county as well, of which obviously Colchester will benefit from. So there's work going on separately as that as well. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a flavour as to the type of direction we're going.
If I might come back, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
certainly.
Yeah, oh, of course, Councillor Belgrove, please do.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, very pleased to hear about some of this, but in previous discussions we've had, I was involved in a focus group, you know, the previous discussions on the garden community. And it was a lot of talk about the railhead perhaps being moved to the university, much more rail usage, because we seem so focused on road usage. You mentioned it will be wheeled transport again. Well, I suppose rail is wheeled transport, but we're focusing on roads, and that is a bit of a bugbear for councillors in Alresford. Again, roads being clogged up. Anyway, I'll leave it there, but you've answered a lot. But once again, we seem to be really focused on road-based transport, and that is a big issue for where we are. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Turner.
Okay. Pleasure, Councillor Belgrove. Did you wish to come back on that, Mr. Turner?
I mean, all to say that initially the system will be wheel-based, as we say. It will obviously from the point of connection with the garden community, it will be utilising existing infrastructure. But as I say, we'll be targeting our infrastructure improvements from the HIF bid to provide places of betterment where we can actually get it ahead of existing traffic. And obviously in the future, if opportunities come along where we can take it away from the existing road corridor, then obviously we're looking at something, we will look at those opportunities in the future as well. And, you know, as we say, I mean, the garden community is developed over the next 20, 30, 40 years, as Gary is saying. So the way that transport will modify beyond that point as well, then, you know, the RTS has the opportunity to develop and shape with that and become something more transformational.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. You happy with that, Councillor Belgrove? Reasonably. Thank you. Councillor Luxford Vaughan.
Firstly, Ian, could you just answer the question I've asked in the chat, which is your aspiration? It sounds like the aspiration is the Belfast Glider, but hybrid buses are pretty new technology. Do we actually have the funding for that? The other thing was, I've not had a conclusive answer as to whether there will be a bus lane added as opposed to taken away from the dual carriageway going both ways on the A133. Can you confirm that for me, please?
Yeah, so like I say, we're looking to procure the latest technology as part of the RTS system. So the Belfast Glider is the basis of what we're looking at, but obviously at the moment that is fuel based. By the time we get to 2024, 2025, as I say, the government is looking at the vehicle-based technology will be based on electric, hydrogen, very much so. So that would be very much along our own thoughts as well, because we do want to be cutting edge. And then with regards to the actual infrastructure itself, so we're we're targeting the infrastructure. So we'll be looking at introducing additional lane capacity on the approach all the way from Knowledge Gateway through to the Grinstead roundabout. So we're not looking at taking away any of the existing dual carriageway capacity.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Councillor Vaughan, Luxford Vaughan, would you like to come back?
I just if that's the case, how are you going to get across the bridge? Because it's not big enough to put an additional lane in at Salary Brook.
So we're happy we can get, so inbound is where we need the journey time reliability, and the designs at the moment show that we can get a lane within that dedicated for the RTS service.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Luxford Vaughan, did you wish to come back on that?
Good, thanks.
No, thank you very much. Does anyone else have any questions? We seem to be well done, a superb job as usual, Gary. I don't expect less. But we have anybody else like to ask anything? No. That's Gary, over to you. Oh, sorry, I apologise. I have an Amanda, Miss Brennan, Councillor Brennan.
Yeah. Well, Gary will know I'm going to keep on and on about this question, and that's about, we don't want, I'm from Elmstead Parish Council, we don't want the coalescence with the garden community. And we're very concerned, as are all the villagers, about our buffer zone. And it's, for us, it's all a bit maybe wavy, you're going to get one, but we don't know how big it's going to be. And we're doing a neighbourhood plan and we're going to put it in, but is it going to be taken, are you going to take notice of it? And we are very concerned about it. And it's not something we're going to shut up about, to be honest.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brennan. I can assure you, as chairman of the Planning Policy Committee, that it goes through your district plan, your neighbourhood plan. We will support it as long as it isn't in conflict with the district plan, and we fully understand your need for a buffer zone. And I'm going to at this point I'm going to pass over to Mr. Guyver.
Thank you very much, and Councillor Brennan. Yes, the point is fully understood, and even written into the policy of the Section 1 plan, there's a recognition that you need to avoid coalescence and need to respect the individual character of surrounding settlements. And as I mentioned in the presentation earlier, of course you've got a number of communities affected by this development who will have their own views as to how to ensure separation and to avoid coalescence. And Councillor Luxford Vaughan mentioned earlier that the Wivenhoe Town Council, they want to see development completely to the north of the A133, so maintaining that buffer. I understand certainly Elmstead Market Parish Council's view as to how a buffer should be incorporated both through the development plan document and the work that you're doing on the neighbourhood plan. I can't give you detailed boundaries yet because we haven't done the master planning work yet, but the beauty of being in that position that we haven't done the master planning work is that we can take on board early these concerns and be very cognizant of them as that work progresses. I think some of the criticisms that local authorities have had in the past are that the plan is published, or people are only given 6 weeks to comment on it, and you know, the point that you publish the plan is the first time anybody sees anything of it, whereas I think with this plan we're trying to not go down that line. We're trying to have very early engagement throughout the remainder of the year, so understanding those concerns and those aspirations early helps us to feed that into the master planning process, so that by the time we do get to a DPD document early next year, although it won't please everyone, at least what is published in it won't hopefully come as a huge shock, because people would have had the opportunity to put their comments forward. So the detail will emerge.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Guyver. Councillor Brennan, does that answer your question, or would you like to come back?
It does, but I am.
You'll wait and see what we produce.
I'm very concerned. Yeah, I have to say.
I assure you, we have discussed it informally many times.
Okay.
Okay, but as we have all the concerns of all the parish councils that we're aware of, and one of the points of this meeting is to find out if there's anything else that we haven't heard of, and is there anything else we can say to that we can tell you that where we've so far got to. But as I said, at the moment it's very exploratory, this steering group, and it's all been held up by the forthcoming elections. We hope to start making some good progress after the elections, plus the fact we in tendering, because we'll be the same council, and there'll be the same certainly councillors involved, but we've got two brand new councils to deal with, new one, Colchester Borough and Essex County. Thank you. Any other questions, please?
Actually, can I ask another one?
Of course you may.
And oh, no, this is going to be politically incorrect, but it's about the Gypsy Traveller site.
Would you like it in Elmstead?
No, but I just wanted to ask, how big is it going to be? Because no one sort of actually said, is it going to be a small development? Is it going to be quite large? And will it be near a main road? Will it be right in the middle of the garden community? It's just a question, because that's one of the things that some of the Ansell residents are also worried about.
No, thank you, Councillor Brennan. I mean, the only answer I can give you at this stage is that you know, it will come out of the master planning work that needs to be done. So we don't have an answer about the specific location. We don't even have the answer as to how large or how many pitches it's going to be, because this development, the idea of having the Gypsy and Traveller bit written into the policy is that it will assist in meeting the needs of that community. whatever those needs might be. A lot of that need is dealt with through other sites within either the tendering district or within the Colchester Borough. So what we'll have to ascertain through the work on the development plan document is, of the need that can't be met in those other locations, how much are we going to meet through this garden community development? The location of it, we're not at that stage yet, but if there are particular concerns about how it's developed, where it's located, this is the opportunity to begin listening to those, so that we're very cognizant of that as we progress with the master planning work. And the local plan policy isn't specific about the number, whereas with housing development it at least gives a range, 7,000 to 9,000 houses, and for employment development it gives a figure of 25 hectares. For gypsies and travellers it doesn't specify the figures, so further work will be required to ascertain what that need is going to be and how it is best accommodated as part of the development.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Brennan. Thank you, Mr. Guyver. Do I have any other questions? Yes. Oh, no, sorry, your hand came up, Mr. Guyver. Over to you.
It's me again. Well, it's not a question, of course, but I am happy to speak to parish councillors in separate meetings if you're happy. I think this format of having these team meetings is quite useful because we can have them in the evenings, but if any of the parish councils feel that they would like a session with me so they can ask perhaps questions that they think of after this meeting, please get in contact with me, and I'm more than happy to attend an evening Teams meeting with the other parishes on here.
Thank you. Well, it appears if we don't have any more questions, I'm happy to keep this running as long as you want to ask questions. Jill, hang on, Williams, Councillor Williams.
I'd like to just ask if the people that are going to be looking at the rapid transport system, are they people that actually live locally, or are they, I realise Essex Highways, there's going to be somebody from Essex on there, but are the other people actually local people, so they're well aware of the issues, they're not people that live outside of the area and don't use those facilities and have got no idea what the problems are going to be getting through Colchester? And because quite often when there's these schemes, the people who devise them don't even live here, so they're not actually aware. It's all right on a bit of paper, but they don't realise the practicalities. That's just my question. Is somebody locally going to be involved with it?
Councillor Williams, I'm going to hand that over to Mr. Gabriel, then pass it on to Mr. Turner.
Oh, you read my mind, Councillor Turner, as to exactly what I was going to do. But before I hand over to Ian to perhaps provide a sort of technical response to that, you've got to bear in mind, as we said as part of the presentation, that this is a 30, 40-year development. In which time you're going to be introducing new households to the area, new ways of working, new ways of thinking, new forms of transportation. This development is not going to spring up overnight, and in planning for the development, account needs to be taken for the likely innovations that are going to come about within the timescales of the development. And I'll hand over to perhaps Ian to ask the specific question about local people's involvement in the transport side of the project.
Yeah, I mean, so we're very lucky on the RTS that we've got designers who are, you know, local, live within Essex, live local to the area. In fact, we've got one gentleman, one of the lead designers, who actually lives about 100 metres away from the RTS route in one of the locations. So we're very fortunate, and also it's a well-established team that's been working within Essex, within Colchester and that over a number of years. So yeah, I'm very confident we have got a team that's very aware of the situation, including transportation planners and also consultants that have been working with Essex County Council for 10 plus years. So it's a well-established team.
But they don't actually live or travel down the A13 on a daily basis, do they? They might live in Essex, but they're people who actually have to get into Colchester, have to know those buses initially or whatever they're going to be, are going to actually go to where people want to go.
So
People who sit in Chelmsford do not know what the system is down here in Colchester and Elmstead and Wivenhoe and.
So you know, there are members of the team that have worked on Colchester schemes, and as I said, you know, one of the lead designers actually lives within 100 metres of the RTS corridor itself. So there are people who work there, and it's like I say, it's a well-established team. Obviously, they work on projects across Essex, but they have also worked on a number of projects within Colchester as well. So it's a well-established team.
Well, why is it so bad getting through Colchester then if they're so? Anyway, I'll leave it there.
Well, the answer to that, you haven't got an RTS yet.
That is, well, I'm just going to leave it. Thank you.
Councillor Brennan, is that what they call, is your hand up for another question, or are you not taking it down?
No, I would like to ask a question, and that was it's about the rapid transport system.
Right.
And that is, I did go on, I read it with interest, I went onto the website and I read it all, and nothing in there, but what I read, nothing came to a satisfactory conclusion as to what route they would take through the town, because everything came up with a bit of an issue. So, and then there's Eastgates where you have to sometimes wait 15 minutes to get through. Sorry, my phone's ringing. To get through the through the gates. I mean, how's the rapid transport system going to do it? I'm confused by the rapid transport system, and I know it's going to take all this time, but I still don't see how they're going to sort out the Eastgates problem unless someone else can tell me. Mr.
Turner, are you happy to take that?
Yes, so the route is coming from the A133. It's coming along St Andrews Avenue. It's going to look to go down Ipswich Road south and then through to East Hill and then through into the town centre. At the moment, we're looking at it going down Queen Street on the sort of westbound, northbound approach through St John's, up Head Street, and then through onto North Station Road, and then up through to North Station, and then onto the NAR and through to the Park and Ride Zone. On the return trip, we're looking to come through, following the same route, and then coming back through the town centre, the High Street area, and then back, as I say, East Hill, Ipswich Road South, St Andrews Avenue, and then back out Grinstead Roundabout and through onto the A133. So that is the routing of the RTS system as we're taking forward.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, okay. A little bit confused still, but I think we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, it'll sort itself out, I'm sure of that. Councillor Ward, Martine Ward, I noticed you put a question up. Would you like to ask that question? Councillor Ward? If not, Gary, have you can you read the question?
I have, yeah. I'm happy to read the question in the chat from Councillor Ward. I might be naive, but I'm sure that people want a better quality of life and want to live in a clean and quiet area. So why are we being urbanised, which will lead to poor air quality, insufficient water availability, waste disposal problems and high energy consumption? By urbanising us, we are forced to live in the conditions people are escaping from through counter-urbanisation. We are placing the lives of future generations in the balance for health problems, and they have no choice in the matter. We had chosen the rural side of Elmstead, and we are forced to lose a big chunk of it and have a road that will attract more traffic and therefore affect our health. So, I mean, the point is well made. It's one of the most common concerns that is raised by people in the community about developments of this scale, but not just in this location, wherever the development is proposed. And over the last few years, we've had quite big increases of development in and around some of our towns and villages. And I'm sure Councillor Belgrove and colleagues from Elmstead can testify that big developments have been happening around the villages, which raise similar concerns about urbanisation, the loss of character of an area. But still, the councils have a duty to plan for future growth, because the population is projected to increase, and you have to make provision for that. And the choices that the council has had through the local plan process do you start a new settlement in a location where you can do it in line with the garden community principles, which is all about creating a place where people can live in healthy conditions, have house access to employment, green open spaces, or do you continue the approach of expanding around existing villages? And I think in some of those areas that have been affected by development, they will say no, create the new settlement, and in locations that are close to the new settlement, they will say no, locate it around existing towns and villages. But it's the unfortunate duty that local authorities have, is they have to plan positively for the growth that is anticipated as a result of population change, and we do our best to do it in the most sustainable way possible, and to create the highest quality of development we can. And that's the reason for going for a garden community. And we know that people that live close to the location aren't happy about it, but we've got to do the best that we can through this development plan document to plan for the highest quality of development that we can, which we can be proud of. And actually, rather than see it as a problem going into the future, we can see it as a location that people do aspire to want to live and work. And I know that might sound a little bit motherhood and apple pie and a bit idealistic, but that is the duty that your local authority is charged with, and we want to work with you to achieve the best outcome that we can, appreciating that not everybody is going to be happy about it.
Thank you very much, Gary. Councillor Ward, did you wish to come back? No, right. I'll go. Councillor Luxford Vaughan asked another question. Councillor Luxford Vaughan.
I can see the comment in the chat, so I can.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, as part of the planning application, as part of all the work we've done, traffic assessments, and those results can be seen within the planning application itself. I mean, the link road has strategic benefits. It's also there as part of the garden community to support that, but also helps to take traffic more quickly onto the strategic network, so away from having to enter Colchester on the A133 straight out into the A120 from the tendering area. And also, you've got to take into account that this is not just a link road in isolation, it is the rapid transport system. We're looking at part of the development for a park and choose, and again, the opportunity there to capture traffic before it enters Colchester. So it's part of a wider model to deal with traffic, to benefit and reduce the amount of traffic that obviously enters Colchester and also from the garden community.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Ms. Sirrett, over to you.
Thank you. I was just going to add, in addition to Ian's comments, that he'll tell me if I'm wrong here, but I think even a small proportion of traffic, if it can be removed from roads, can make a big difference to congestion at peak times. If you think, for example, of school holidays, my understanding is there's a 10% reduction on the roads during school holidays, but you think what a difference that makes to traffic during those times. So even if 80% of traffic is going to Colchester to work, and obviously there's more than just the town centre for workplace locations in Colchester, but it could make a substantial difference.
Thank you very much for those comments. Any other questions or comments? I'll take that as No, and before I wind up, I would like to, if somebody could, I think this has been, from my point of view, and I'm hoping from Mr. Guyver's point of view, that we found this very useful indeed. And I was wondering if you'd like me to suggest that we do this every 3 or 6 months time. I think 3 months might be a bit short because we're doing a lot of talking and not much acting at the moment. So, but I would be very happy to host, if you'll have me, another meeting like this sometime late summer, early autumn. Would that be acceptable? Or if anybody doesn't agree with it, please say. Well, that looks wonderful, right? Firstly, I'll just remind you to thank you all for joining in and for all your questions and for bringing your concerns to us. I don't care what they are, whether they're major, minor, whatever, they are concerns, and the only way we're going to achieve the result we hope to achieve will be by us all working with each other and being honest and open with each other. And I assure you, if I'm chairing it, I'll be as honest and open as I possibly can. And thank you, Mr. Guyver, for leading us through this so very well as usual. And thank you for all your officers whose names I don't have written down. So please say, just consider them read. And thank you, Sharon, for facilitating. And may I wish you all a very good night. And hopefully I'll probably see you within the next 6 months. But if not, I look forward to seeing you in the autumn. Thank you very much indeed. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank